So, hello and welcome to another video. Today we want to talk about what to consider when you are hiring a debate coach or a debating teacher as a headmistress or just a teacher running a debating club or anything else. So, firstly, we want to talk about what you are hiring the debate coach to actually do. It's not quite as simple as do debating. What to prioritize when hiring a debate coach, and perhaps what not to prioritise. A quick word on CVs. Debate CVs can be quite misleading. I think it's worth looking at that. And then just where to literally find a coach if you are looking. I think quite importantly, this is not an advertisement for Stand Up Speaking's coaching services. We don't really do that much coaching as stand-up speaking anymore. We do a lot of work with teachers, i.e. CPDs, and we do wider resource provision, but we spend very little time in classrooms as stand-up speaking now, and that's a very deliberate choice. And one of the nice things about that choice is that I think it will allow us to make this video quite objectively and without sort of motivated reasoning, because this isn't a video where I'm just going to be like, hey, here are 15 things you want to look for in a coach, and oh my god, it's all the things that stand-up speaking does. We probably couldn't provide coaching services if you asked, because we just don't really do that anymore. So, with that in mind, let's go straight in. So it's really important when you are about to hire someone to do debate coaching or a debate teacher or whatever, that you're very clear in your own mind what you are hiring this person to do. And that is a subset of a much larger question, which is, what is your goal for the debating society, public speaking club, wider school? And we've talked about goals before, but if what you are looking for is just to have a debating society with, a dozen kids who compete every couple of months, and it's just like a fun extracurricular activity that doesn't go beyond a Wednesday practice every week and a few competitions, that's totally cool. If you want your school to be just a hotbed of meaningful discourse and discussion, you want public speaking club, a debate club, show debates, house debating, great discussions taking place in RE, English, politics, wherever else. Again, that's a very different set of goals, isn't it? So, when you're hiring a coach, you need to first meaningfully know what you want out of your debating club or oracy movement. But then beyond that, you need to think about what part that person is going to play, because are they literally doing everything? I mean, you might be a headmistress who's thinking, okay, I want to hire someone who's just going to build my club from nothing or from very little, which it is right now, to us being an amazing debate school. And that's cool, but that probably means hiring that person to work full time for you for years, because that is a lofty goal, and a lofty goal requires money, attention, time, and support. Similarly, you might be a teacher who runs a good debate club, but this is a lot of the coaching I used to do actually back in Scotland was teachers who run good, strong debating clubs are very capable of coaching novices, walking them through the basics, can judge debates well, give good feedback, but maybe maybe you're just not totally clear on how to teach something like framing or summary speeches or I don't know, like how to weigh appropriately from opening half. And if those more technical aspects of debating are just something you can't do, but you can do 80% of stuff, then hiring someone to just fill in that gap is a very different proposition than hiring someone to run the club. And so I think it's really, really important that you know what you want more broadly from the debating that's going on in your school, and that you figure out what you can do, or what your teachers can do, or your colleagues can do, where the gap is, and then you hire someone to plug that gap. And one of the big mistakes that I often see schools make is that their thought process is literally, debating is cool, I want debating, or I want all of our students to have deep, meaningful discussions, And so what I'm going to do is hire a debate coach to come in once a week on a Monday and run some debate training, and that'll be grand. And it's like, that is not a thought out plan. So it's really important to think this plan out. And of course, part of that is not just knowing your goal, but knowing where you are right now. Do you have a great debate club? Do you have a new debate club? Do you have a middling, decent debate club that competes, or public speaking, or MUN, or whatever else? Is there no oracy happening in your school right now? Where are you? And that's a big part of knowing where you are, knowing where you want to go, knowing what you can do, and your colleagues can do, and knowing what you need to be done. You have to think of all of that when you're hiring. So, selecting a debate coach. I think the most important thing to say here is that I would always prioritise someone who is good with kids, good at teaching, good at explaining things, fun, has a good rapport with kids, over someone who is super, super amazing at debating. The basic level of competence, if you're coaching debating in a school in the UK and it's predominantly BP format, is you want someone who's been doing university debating for 2-3 years, assuming they weren't at very good schools to debater themselves. If so, then less university experience is fine. And you want them to have broken at at least half a dozen things, probably closer to a dozen, as speakers, with a few judge breaks as well, just to make sure they can actually judge. Although I think judge breaks are a lot less important than speaker breaks. And once they get to that basic level of competence, really what you're worried about then is how good a teacher they are. In the same way that if you're teaching GCSE economics, you just don't need a PhD in economics. But you do want someone who's a very good teacher. Being a very, very good teacher in terms of explaining things well, having interesting lessons, varied lessons, good interactions with the kids feeling like they can ask questions and that they won't be sort of told off or shouted down, the lessons being fun. This is even more important for debating than it is for a regular school subject because, of course, debating or public speaking or MUN or whatever, these are optional things. The kids are giving up their free time to be there. So they will vote with their feet. If the coach is not someone that kids want to be around, you're really in trouble. A big debating club is a good debating club. If you have dozens and dozens and dozens of kids coming through the door to debating, some of them will love it, some of them will work really hard, some of them will be naturals. If you only have like a half dozen, 10, maybe a dozen kids coming to your debating club spread across 6 or 7 different years, there's no guarantee that any of them will be any good or work that hard. You need numbers to make a club strong. And so, for one, when I look at someone's CV, if I'm considering hiring them to do some coaching work, I do want to see that basic level of debate competence. And ideally, I'd like them to have done some debate coaching before. But I also do consider if they've just got generic teaching experience, summer camp, tutoring, coached a sports team, because at least that way I know that they have some ability to build rapport with students and interact with kids. And that's really, really important. So, yeah, I would don't fetishize or attach too much importance to someone who, was a top 5 speaker at Worlds or won 5 competitions. Unless you have a lot of very advanced kids, which you almost certainly don't because no one does apart from about 4 schools in the UK, you don't need someone who's amazing at debating. You need someone who's good at teaching. One of the ways that people find coaches is by going along to competitions and you see a judge give some of your kids particularly good feedback and you ask them if they do coaching, or you meet coaches from other schools, most of whom will be part-time at any given school because very few schools have a full-time coach. And if you like them, you maybe ask if they have some room in their calendar to do some coaching at your school as well. And that's a really good way of finding coaches. It's how I first got into coaching. I was judging a mace round, and a teacher asked me to come along and do some coaching if I could. And I was really excited by this opportunity, but I was a university student, and I was too stupid to even ask for money, even though it was a private school. I was just like, yeah, that sounds great. Just not knowing the value of your own expertise is a stunning phenomenon. But yeah, that's how a lot of coaches get found. And I would say this is a really good way to find coaches. One of the biggest mistakes that I see happening here, though, when you're selecting for coaches, is that teachers judge a coach's ability on the absolute strength of their school rather than the value added. And what I mean by this is, you might go along to some debating competitions and you see a school just like crushing it, making a lot of finals, or kids are really strong. Let's say the school's called Hogwarts and the coach is called Albus. And you think, oh, Albus must be a great coach because this school is solid. Albus probably is quite a good coach, to be fair. But if this school's been crushing debating for 10, 15 years, or was crushing debating before Albus got there, Albus might just be riding a sort of self-perpetuating wave. Because very, very strong debating clubs are self-reinforcing. If you've gotten to the stage where you have some really solid kids who are just like advanced debaters, when they go to competitions, they're always competing for the wins or for the finals. They're therefore getting very good feedback in top rooms against top debaters. The practice debates within your school are going to be high quality, and the newer, less experienced kids have someone to emulate and imitate and look up to and learn from. Then that club it's not going to run itself, but it's going to do quite well. And a less competent coach could join that school and not do that much and just sort of ride the wave of a club that's already doing really well. In the same way that a Prime Minister could inherit a very, very strong booming economy and low unemployment, and just by not doing much, the unemployment might continue to fall and the economy might continue to grow because it's in an upward cycle. And so you might be better off looking at the schools where you've noticed a substantial difference. Where, maybe there's a school called Beauxbatons who, they're not crushing it, but you've noticed a couple times they've snuck into a silver final and that the kids seem to be holding their own more and more, and you're pretty sure that 3 years ago they didn't even do debating, and 2 years ago they were getting slaughtered. And you might look at their coach Fleur and think, well, okay, her kids aren't winning competitions, but there's been a massive improvement in a very short space of time. That's the coach I'd want to at least have a conversation with, find out what was going on there. So do always assess coaches, both once you've hired them and when you look at other schools in terms of value added. Have they made an amazing school even more amazing, or have they just joined an amazing school and not ruined it? If you're not going to find a coach that way, or if you're struggling to find a coach that way, you definitely can just check out the Facebook group Jobs for Debaters, which is a really useful group because there's thousands of members. And you can ask debating organisations like ours or any they might, we wouldn't do this, but some might only say, oh, you can hire us, but we can't recommend coaches. But some will recommend coaches. And that can be a good way to find them as well. And of course, you can just ask other schools as well. There's a school local to me that asked me about coaching last year, and I didn't have the time, but I did just recommend a friend of mine who's a former colleague who I trust completely and who I think is a fantastic coach, and she's been working there a year now and seems to be going really well. So, we often know other coaches in the community and we'll recommend people we trust if we know anyone who's looking. Last thing I've just sort of put there, beware of debate CVs. The thing about debate CVs is that sometimes there are things on debate CVs that sound very impressive, like 1x competition, but you've never heard of this competition, and so you have no idea if that's an achievement or not. Do you know the difference between winning the LSE Open and the Aberdeen Open? I mean, you might think, I think LSE is a slightly better school, but the difference between those two competitions is a lot. So, sorry, Aberdeen. But it's also true. And so just sometimes debating CVs can be purposely misleading. Debaters know what sounds impressive to a muggle and what is impressive to a debater, and sometimes it can be hard to interpret. You're reading it and it's 13th EUDC speaker, and you're like, what is EUDC? Is that a thing? Is that important? Is it big? What is 13th? Is 13th good? How many people take part? If you can't read a debater CV, don't worry. You don't have to. And debater CVs can be very misleading anyway. They often leave out vital information. Someone might put, 20 breaks, but not mention 18 of those are judge breaks, or not mention they were carried there by a partner. The last competition I won, my best mate and partner won it. I was just standing beside him for most of the day. When you meet them for an interview, are they a good communicator? Do they talk well? Are you having a good interaction with them? Are they clear? Do they answer questions well? If so, cool. They're a good speaker. You know that now, right? That suggests that they're probably not full of it. If someone turns up and they have this great debate CV, but then they're like talking to them as like cancer, don't hire that person. Maybe they're great on stage and terrible at human interaction, but that person still isn't someone I would want to be coaching. Ultimately, watch people teach a few lessons. Always be continually assessing. Don't be afraid to discontinue your relationship with a coach that you think isn't really doing much for you, or whose goals don't line up with yours. Keep looking, because there's some fantastic coaches out there, and some fantastic people who will be fantastic coaches if given an opportunity. And yeah, most of all, just know what you want out of the coach. Make sure that this coach has similar aims and goals to you, and then just treat them fairly. Treat them right, pay them what they're worth, or as much as you can pay them, and you'll have a really good relationship with them, and they will really help your school. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful. Obviously, if you've got questions or comments, please fire them at us. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you for another video in the not too distant future.